Welcome back, my silence-shattering truth speaker. Something absolutely electrifying just occurred that has entire room frozen in collective paralysis. You casually mentioned the exact thing everyone was deliberately avoiding, spoke aloud the truth that entire group had tacitly agreed to keep silent about, or through unspoken social contract. And moment those words left your mouth, every person present became unable to blink or look away as uncomfortable reality they'd been collectively suppressing suddenly occupied center stage, demanding acknowledgement. They'd been desperately trying to prevent through maintaining conspiracy of silence. This wasn't you revealing secret information nobody knew. This was you naming what everyone knew but nobody would say, breaking silence around elephant in room that collective agreement had rendered invisible through determined non-acknowledgement, making undeniable through simple articulation what had been deniable only through everyone's cooperation in not mentioning it, shattering comfortable illusion that what nobody speaks about doesn't exist or doesn't matter. The architects have been monitoring collective denial, dissolution, and truth articulation impact phenomena across civilizations for eons, and they've identified what you triggered as unspoken truth, catalytic exposure, when someone breaks tacit agreement to maintain silence around uncomfortable reality, speaking aloud what everyone knows but nobody acknowledges, creating moment where collective denial becomes impossible to maintain, because explicit articulation forces conscious recognition that willful non-mention had been preventing, making group unable to continue pretending ignorance about truth, that silence had been protecting them from having to consciously confront. Most social silence is about genuine ignorance. People don't mention what they don't know, but this silence was deliberate suppression. Everyone knew the truth, but group had implicitly agreed not to mention it, creating shared pretense that what remains unspoken doesn't require response or acknowledgement, allowing comfortable avoidance of uncomfortable reality through conspiracy of silence. Watch what happened when you mentioned the unmentionable. Time seemed to stop. Your words created suspended moment where normal conversation flow froze, where everyone's attention locked onto what you'd just said, where immediate social reality consisted entirely of processing fact that forbidden truth had been spoken aloud, violating tacit agreement everyone had been maintaining. Denial became impossible. As long as nobody mentioned it, individuals could maintain plausible ignorance or pretend uncertainty. But your explicit articulation made continued denial require obvious lying rather than just convenient non-acknowledgement, forcing everyone to consciously confront truth they'd been avoiding through silence. Some observers are experiencing shock. They'd become so accustomed to silence around this truth that hearing it spoken aloud feels transgressive or dangerous, creating almost physical reaction to taboo being violated through simple, truthful statement. Others are experiencing relief. They'd been complicit in silence despite discomfort with suppressing truth, making your articulation feel like liberation from exhausting pretense they'd been maintaining through participating in collective non-mention. The truly powerful element is that you stated it simply and moved on. You didn't dramatically announce you were breaking taboo or dwell extensively on suppressed truth, but merely mentioned it as relevant fact before continuing, making your casual treatment of unmentionable topic even more disorienting because you didn't grant it special status that silence had been giving it. You mentioned what they kept quiet. Room froze, and suddenly nobody could blink because uncomfortable truth they'd been collectively avoiding through determined silence was occupying center of awareness, demanding response they'd been preventing through maintaining agreement that what nobody mentions doesn't require acknowledgement. Now the architects are analyzing what creates silence-breaking impact, and they're identifying what they call collective denial fragility. Recognition, when group maintains shared pretense about reality through tacit agreement to avoid mentioning uncomfortable truths. That denial structure becomes extremely fragile because it requires everyone's continuous cooperation, making single person's decision to speak truth sufficient to shatter entire edifice of collective non-acknowledgement that can only persist while everyone participates in silence. Most structures are individually resilient. One person's defection doesn't destroy what others maintain, but collective denial requires universal participation. Even single truth speaker breaks spell that depends on everyone agreeing not to name what they all know, making conspiracy of silence inherently unstable despite appearing solid while maintained. Consider what collective denial fragility means about social silence. The unspoken agreement was powerful but brittle. While everyone maintained silence, pretense felt stable and comfortable. But the moment anyone violated agreement by speaking truth, entire structure of denial collapsed instantly because it couldn't survive even single defection from universal non-mention. Silence required exhausting vigilance. Maintaining pretense that nobody knows what everyone knows demands constant attention to avoid accidentally mentioning forbidden truth, creating psychological burden that speaking truth immediately eliminates for everyone once silence is broken. Watch what denial structure collapse creates socially. Relief competes with anxiety. Some feel liberated that pretense is over, while others feel threatened that comfortable denial has been destroyed, creating mixed reactions to same truth speaking, where individual psychology determines whether broken silence feels like gift or violation. New reality must be negotiated. With truth now acknowledged, group must determine how to respond, rather than continuing to pretend through silence, forcing conscious engagement with reality that non-mention had been allowing them to avoid confronting. Some studying group psychology recognize collective denial as common phenomenon. Families avoid mentioning dysfunction. Organizations ignore systemic problems. Societies suppress uncomfortable historical truths, all through tacit agreements that what nobody speaks about can be treated as non-existent despite everyone's awareness. Your silence breaking demonstrates fragility of these collective pretenses. Others exploring social contracts note that unspoken agreements are often more powerful than explicit ones because they're never articulated. They can't be directly challenged or negotiated, making them persist through unconscious enforcement, where anyone violating unstated norm faces social pressure to restore silence without explicit discussion of why truth must remain unmentioned. A few from Truth and Reconciliation work recognize that breaking silence is often first step toward healing. Collective denial around trauma, injustice, or dysfunction prevents resolution, making someone speaking suppressed truth necessary catalyst for group to begin processing and addressing reality that silence had been protecting them from confronting. The architects observe that collective denial fragility is why your simple mention had such dramatic impact. You didn't need elaborate argument or extensive revelation because collective pretense was inherently unstable, requiring only single truth speaker to shatter entire structure of denial that could only persist. While everyone cooperated in maintaining silence, most structures resist individual challenges. Collective denial collapses from single defection, and fragility of pretense requiring universal participation is why casually mentioning what they kept quiet was sufficient to freeze entire room in moment where comfortable denial became impossible to maintain through continued silence about truth. That explicit articulation forced into conscious awareness, demanding response or acknowledgement. Something powerful is spreading through the room now, what the architects call post-silence social reorganization, where breaking taboo around suppressed truth is forcing rapid renegotiation of social dynamics, relationships, and group identity, as everyone must determine how they'll respond to acknowledged reality that silence had previously allowed them to avoid positioning themselves toward, creating potential for both deeper authenticity and increased conflict. As suppressed truth becomes explicit topic requiring conscious stances rather than comfortable avoidance. Most social changes are gradual. Relationships evolve slowly. Group dynamics shift incrementally, but silence breaking creates sudden inflection point where everyone must quickly decide how to engage with newly acknowledged reality, making social reorganization occur rapidly in aftermath of truth exposure. Watch what post-silence reorganization creates practically. Alliances are shifting. People who maintained silence for different reasons now reveal whether they were suppressing truth to protect status quo or were uncomfortably complicit waiting for someone to break silence, creating new coalitions between truth embracers and renewed resistance from those invested in denial, even after it's been publicly shattered. Identities are being revealed. How each person responds to acknowledged truth exposes their actual values and commitments that silence had been obscuring, making everyone's position on uncomfortable reality suddenly visible where it was previously hidden behind collective non-mention. Some are grateful for truth-speaking. They'd been uncomfortable maintaining pretense and feel relieved that someone finally named reality everyone knew but wouldn't acknowledge, making them allies in addressing truth. Now that silence breaking has made engagement possible. Others are angry at silence breaker. They preferred comfortable denial to uncomfortable truth, making them resent you for destroying pretense even though truth was accurate. Revealing their investment in avoiding reality exceeds their commitment to acknowledging it. A few are experiencing cognitive dissonance, maintaining contradiction between knowing truth and pretending. Ignorance was uncomfortable, but manageable while everyone participated, but your truth-speaking forces them to consciously confront their complicity in collective denial, creating psychological pressure to either justify past silence or acknowledge they were wrong to participate in suppression. Some are attempting to restore silence, trying to minimize significance of what you mentioned, suggesting it's impolite to discuss, pressuring others to return to pretending through social enforcement, revealing how desperately they want to restore comfortable denial that your truth-speaking destroyed. Others are embracing new openness, using your silence breaking as permission to discuss other suppressed truths, expanding conversation beyond specific topic you mentioned toward broader honesty about realities group has been avoiding through various forms of collective non-acknowledgement. A few are questioning what else is being suppressed if this truth was collectively denied despite everyone knowing it. What other realities are being kept quiet through similar tacit agreements, creating suspicion about collective denial structures that might be operating around other uncomfortable truths group isn't ready to acknowledge. The architects observe that post-silence social reorganization reveals that breaking taboo doesn't just acknowledge truth but fundamentally reshapes social landscape. Your mention of suppressed reality forces everyone to position themselves consciously toward truth that silence had allowed them to avoid engaging with, creating rapid social restructuring as genuine values and commitments become visible. Silence obscured true positions. Truth-speaking forces revelation, and nobody could blink because they're all rapidly processing how to respond to acknowledged reality while watching how others respond, using this moment to gather information about who's aligned with truth versus invested in maintaining denial even after collective pretense has been shattered through your willingness to mention what they kept quiet. Now the architects are revealing what enabled you to break silence others maintained. You apparently possess what they call truth obligation supremacy over social comfort, where your commitment to acknowledging reality and speaking truth exceeds your investment in maintaining comfortable social dynamics or avoiding awkwardness, making you willing to violate tacit agreements about what shouldn't be mentioned when those agreements require suppressing important truths that honesty demands acknowledging. Most people prioritize social comfort. They maintain silence about uncomfortable truths to avoid creating tension, preserve relationships, protect group harmony, making social cohesion more important than truth-speaking when these values conflict. But you apparently operate from hierarchy where truth obligation takes precedence over social comfort, making you unable or unwilling to participate in collective denial even when speaking truth creates social disruption. Consider what truth obligation supremacy requires psychologically. You must tolerate social discomfort, being willing to create awkwardness, tension, or conflict through truth-speaking, rather than prioritizing harmony that silence would maintain. Accepting that honesty sometimes requires sacrificing comfortable social dynamics. You must resist conformity, pressure, tacit agreements to suppress truth are enforced through subtle social pressure, making violation uncomfortable, requiring independence from need for approval that would make you comply with collective denial to maintain acceptance. Watch what truth obligation supremacy creates in social positioning. You become lightning rod. People who value truth speaking appreciate your willingness to break silence, while those invested in comfortable denial resent disruption you create, making you simultaneously admired and criticized for same truth-speaking behavior. Depending on others' value hierarchies, you sacrifice certain relationships. Some connections require maintaining collective pretense, making your truth speaking incompatible with relationships built on shared denial. Forcing choice between truth obligation and specific social bonds requiring silence participation. Some studying integrity and authenticity recognize truth obligation supremacy as core characteristic. People with strong integrity prioritize honesty over comfort, making them willing to speak difficult truths despite social costs, while those prioritizing belonging over honesty maintain silence to preserve relationships, even when this requires participating in collective denial. Others exploring moral courage note that silence breaking often requires bravery. Speaking suppressed truth involves risk of social punishment, relationship damage, or group rejection. Making truth-telling in face of collective denial require courage beyond just honesty, because social consequences can be severe for violating unspoken agreements. A few from whistleblowing and dissent research recognize that truth speakers often face retaliation. Organizations, communities, societies punish those who break silence around suppressed realities, making truth obligation supremacy potentially costly stance that explains why most people maintain comfortable silence rather than risking social consequences of acknowledging uncomfortable truths. Some attempting to develop similar capacity discover difficulty of resisting conformity, social pressure to maintain collective silence is powerful and often unconscious, making participation in denial feel natural rather than chosen, requiring significant self-awareness and independence to recognize and resist tacit agreements that most people comply with automatically. The architects observe that truth obligation supremacy is what enabled your silence breaking. You value acknowledging reality more than maintaining comfortable social dynamics, making you willing to mention suppressed truth despite violating tacit agreement and creating disruption that most people avoid through prioritizing harmony over honesty. Most people choose social comfort over truth speaking. You prioritize truth obligation and supremacy of honesty over comfort in your value hierarchy. is why you were able to mention what they kept quiet while others maintained silence through prioritizing social cohesion that required participating in collective denial you rejected through commitment to truth speaking that exceeded investment in avoiding awkwardness or preserving comfortable pretense requiring everyone's cooperation in suppressing acknowledged reality. The architects are now analyzing timing dimension of your truth speaking. You apparently recognized what they call silence ripeness moment recognition, where collective denial around suppressed truth had reached critical instability, making silence breaking particularly impactful because group was unconsciously ready for pretense to end, despite no one being willing to be first to speak truth, creating situation where your mention catalyzed release of tension that had been building as maintaining denial became increasingly difficult. For everyone participating, most truth speaking is poorly timed. Speaking too early when group is invested in denial creates hostile rejection, while speaking too late after others have already broken silence reduces impact, making timing crucial for maximizing effect of mentioning suppressed reality. Watch what silence ripeness creates in group dynamics. Denial was becoming unsustainable. Maintaining pretense required increasing effort as reality became harder to ignore, creating tension where everyone knew silence couldn't continue indefinitely, but nobody wanted to be first to break it, making group unconsciously ready for release. Your truth speaking provided, your mention catalyzed rather than forced, because silence ripeness made group ready for acknowledgement. Your words acted as catalyst, releasing energy that had built up rather than forcing unwilling group to confront truth they weren't ready to acknowledge, explaining why impact was so immediate and dramatic. Some studying group process recognize that collective tensions build when groups suppress important truths. Psychological pressure accumulates over time, making silence increasingly difficult to maintain until someone finally speaks what everyone knows, creating release that feels inevitable in retrospect, even though timing of who speaks when remains uncertain. Others exploring tipping points note that systems in unstable equilibrium can shift dramatically from small perturbations. Your mention may have been small intervention, but it occurred when collective denial was already unstable, making minor push sufficient to tip system from maintained silence into acknowledged truth through triggering phase transition that minor intervention couldn't create if system was in stable denial state. A few recognize that you may have read room consciously, noticing subtle signals that silence was becoming unsustainable. Sensing group was ready for truth speaking, even if individuals weren't consciously aware of readiness, allowing you to time intervention optimally rather than just happening to speak at fortuitous moment. Some attempting to develop similar awareness discover importance of sensing collective states, reading whether group is rigidly attached to denial versus unconsciously ready for truth requires sensitivity to subtle group dynamics that most people don't consciously track, making timing skill as important as willingness to speak truth. Others recognize that silence ripeness might be retrospective interpretation. It's easy to explain your successful truth speaking as well-timed after fact, but determining whether silence was actually ripe versus you just happened to speak when you did becomes difficult to establish, making timing recognition potentially real skill or potentially attribution pattern imposed after successful intervention. The architects observe that silence ripeness moment recognition, whether conscious skill or fortunate timing, is part of why your truth speaking had such dramatic impact. Mentioning suppressed truth when group is deeply invested in denial creates resistance and rejection, but speaking when collective denial has become unstable and group is unconsciously ready for release creates catalytic effect, where your words trigger transition that was already prepared, even if not consciously acknowledged. You mentioned what they kept quiet. Timing was optimal, whether deliberately chosen or fortunately coincidental, and silence ripeness meant your truth-speaking catalyzed release of built-up tension, making denial unsustainable, explaining why nobody could blink through experiencing collective shift from maintained pretense to acknowledged reality that your mention triggered that moment when group was ready, even if unwilling. Now something's emerging that the architects call authenticity cascade initiation, your silence breaking about one suppressed truth, triggering wider movement toward honesty, where people are beginning to acknowledge other uncomfortable realities they've been avoiding, speaking truths they've suppressed, admitting awareness they've been pretending not to have, creating expanding wave of authenticity, radiating from your initial truth-speaking toward comprehensive, shift away from collective pretense toward genuine acknowledgement across multiple domains. Most truth-speaking is contained. One, truth gets acknowledged, but denial structures around other topics remain intact, limiting impact to specific revelation without creating broader cultural shift. But your silence-breaking, apparently initiated, cascade where acknowledging one suppressed truth is making people recognize and question other denial structures they're participating in, creating potential for comprehensive authenticity shift beyond initial topic you mentioned. Watch what authenticity cascade creates practically. Other silences are being broken, emboldened by your truth-speaking or recognizing similar dynamics around different topics. People are mentioning other suppressed realities, expanding conversation beyond what you initially raised toward broader honesty about multiple uncomfortable truths group has been avoiding through various forms of collective non-acknowledgement. Pretense is becoming less acceptable. Your demonstration that suppressed truth can be spoken without catastrophic consequences is making continued silence around other topics feel less necessary or justified, creating cultural shift where maintaining denial requires more explicit justification than was needed when collective pretense was unquestioned norm. Some are experiencing liberation, participating in wider authenticity cascade feels freeing after years of maintaining various pretenses, making them grateful for your catalytic truth speaking that initiated movement toward comprehensive honesty they'd wanted but hadn't dared pursue alone. Others are experiencing threat to expanding authenticity cascade is destroying multiple comfortable denials they were invested in maintaining, making them resist a broader shift toward honesty that your initial silence breaking triggered through wanting to preserve remaining pretenses, even as specific truth you mentioned becomes impossible to deny. A few recognize that your truth-speaking modeled possibility, seeing that you survived violating taboo without being destroyed, makes others recognize they could speak suppressed truths they've been afraid to mention, creating social learning where your example reduces perceived risk of honesty, making authenticity cascade possible. Some are attempting to contain cascade, trying to limit acknowledgement to specific truth you mentioned while resisting expansion toward other suppressed realities, wanting to preserve some denial structures even while accepting that particular pretense you shattered can't be restored, creating tension between those embracing comprehensive authenticity and those wanting selective honesty. Others recognize that cascade might be temporary. Initial enthusiasm for expanded honesty might fade as comfort of certain denials becomes attractive again, making question whether authenticity cascade you initiated will create permanent cultural shift toward honesty or will be temporary deviation before various pretenses get reestablished through renewed tacit agreements to suppress uncomfortable truths. The architects observe that authenticity cascade initiation reveals your silence breaking had impact beyond specific truth, mentioned by demonstrating that suppressed reality can be acknowledged and that denial structures can be shattered through simple, honest speaking. You've catalyzed broader movement toward authenticity that's expanding beyond initial topic. One silence broken, others beginning to crack and cascade, spreading from your truth-speaking toward comprehensive. Shift away from collective pretense toward genuine. Acknowledgement is why nobody could blink through. Recognizing that moment you mentioned what they kept quiet, initiated transformation exceeding specific, revelation toward potential cultural, metamorphosis from comfort, prioritizing, denial toward truth, prioritizing, authenticity.